Greetings, Peter Dyke, Executive Director of the Alliance for PE Pipe, back for another edition of the PolyPodcast. I believe this is our 28th edition. Recently, on the floor of AWWA in Toronto, I caught up with 7 or 8 people, experts in the industry who had a lot of very interesting things to say about their opinions about what they're seeing in the market and what's going to come next. Really fun conversations. Hey, I want to say thank you to WL Plastics for sponsoring yet another PolyPodcast. This is our 28th. We've had a variety of sponsors, but really grateful for WL for stepping up and sponsoring it now. And look, if you've got comments about things you'd like to hear in future editions, email me at pdyke@pepipe.org, and I'll do my best to put together a good show for you. So with that, let's listen to another edition of the PolyPodcast. Enjoy the show. Peter Dyke here, Executive Director of the Alliance for PE Pipe. Welcome back to the PolyPodcast. My first guest today is none other than Greg Scoby. Welcome, Greg.
Hi. Welcome.
So Greg is a polyethylene expert and consultant and has served on the Municipal Advisory Board, Camille's great project there at PPI for many years, and previously at Palo Alto.
Correct.
Tell us briefly, Greg, about your experience with polyethylene.
It started in 1986. I went to work for the city of Palo Alto, and they needed to find a new material for natural gas. So we went to polyethylene for natural gas, and we started developing a lot of trenchless technology techniques and became pretty good at it. Then we migrated to using high-density polyethylene for sewer projects, and eventually we went full bore on water for HDPE, so that all 3 of the utilities I was responsible for installed polyethylene as primary material.
Well, Greg, you've certainly been a legend in the industry for years. In fact, the PE Alliance named one of our awards after you, so thank you for letting us do that. That's pretty cool. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, Greg, was kind of your perspective as a consultant now after you've left a municipality, what your opinion is about where we are in the market and how polyethylene is doing.
I believe polyethylene's got a really bright future, that there is, with all this money coming from the feds and all, that we've seen an increase in the replacement of materials, or at least in the design phase at this point. Construction's coming. So I see it as a bright future. There's been some issues as far as unavailability of other competing materials that have probably led to more success than could be expected at that point, but I think it's a bright future for polyethylene. I see it being used by more and more cities all the time.
Well, one of the critiques, Greg, people have given me is, hey, Peter, how come we're not going any faster in this polyethylene market for municipalities? What would your opinion be on why it isn't going faster? Like in the gas industry, as you know, Greg, they showed up to work one day and they said, hey, you got to use polyethylene. But that's not happening in the water market. Why isn't it going faster in the water market in the United States and Canada?
Well, the reason it accelerated so much in the gas industry is that you have corrosion issues, and there are regulations associated with corrosion. So gas companies were able to reduce their responsibility related to corrosion on mains that were replaced with polyethylene. On the water side, trenchless technology has always kind of led the way, but I think that we're getting to the point of familiarizing users or companies that polyethylene is also a viable method for open cut construction. And we need to get over that leap to where it's not only the trenchless technology solution, but that you can open cut it and be very proficient in doing so.
It's interesting you bring that up, Greg, because in our webinar program that we started during COVID, this year we're averaging over 340 people per webinar. In fact, one of them we had 1,400 people signed up and just over 1,000 showed up that day. It's crazy. But what we've learned from our webinar participants is the dominant, so it's a smaller cohort of people, but the dominant method for polyethylene installation in the United States in that group of people is open cut.
That's great. That's great news. Open cut's the answer. I mean, it's ultimately, we've got to convince these installers that you can prefabricate this material above ground and then lower it into the trench. I've heard arguments where there's high water table that how can we fuse pipe underwater? Well, you don't. You fuse pipe beside the trench, and then due to the flexibility and the self-restraining material characteristics, you can then lower it into the trench. So it's very viable on open cut. When you get to certain diameters, and we're talking an urban environment in the street replacement, it's really not practical to do directional drilling when you're talking about diameters above 12-inch in congested corridors. Really, open cut's the only answer at that point.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this is a podcast, and we're trying to keep these interviews kind of brief. If you had one message to give to a municipal owner who's considering polyethylene, what would that message be?
I believe that it represents the greatest value to your customers. It's going to last longer. You're going to have minimal maintenance associated with it. You really got to pay attention to the installation. That's the critical part of the process. But once you get the tooling correct and your people trained according to all kinds of standards that are out there, you're going to have great success with polyethylene.
Well, Greg Scoby, what a great interview. Thank you for taking time to talk to the Alliance for PE Pipe. How can people get a hold of you?
They can really, I'm not out there actively seeking work, but they can probably find me just on a search of the internet. I've got a business called Crossbore Consultants, and you can find that pretty readily on the internet.
Awesome. So a nice place to be, not actively seeking work and having as much knowledge as you do. Well, you've been a great boon to the industry, and we appreciate you, Greg Scoby. Thank you very much. All right, here we are in another segment with my good colleague, Richard Kolasa from WL Plastics. Hello, Richard.
Hello, Peter. Nice to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back on the podcast. I'm interested in hearing from you and what's going on with WL. How's the market doing in water, but also what's going on with other markets?
Oh, wow. The markets are very, very healthy. Very, very healthy for starters. The water and sewer markets, with infrastructure depleting the way it has over the past 10 years, and actually past 50 years, but the last 10 have been the negative effects of leakage and everything else. So for us in the polyethylene pipe world, we're seeing a steady increase in market growth for our products in water and sewer, and that's because these failing infrastructures of legacy products are really starting to show themselves and are starting to get very expensive, not only for the municipalities but for repairs, but also for the taxpayer, because water is becoming a little bit more scarce in certain areas than others. So it's a real big challenge, and so we're trying to help that situation with hopefully a resolution, Peter, that we will not leak, and we will have a good product for many years to come.
So I've been hearing a little bit, Richard, lately that one of the reasons that our market continues to grow in municipal water and sewer is because the folks in the ductile and the PVC markets are struggling to provide material. What's your perspective on that issue?
Yeah, that perspective is a good one. Availability for ductile iron and PVC became a real issue. So it really opened the door for us. We had challenges with municipalities not having polyethylene spec'd into their products. So that really opened the door because we did have availability. We've got lots of support on the resin side or the compound side. And so then we were able to produce during those times. And the work continued because a lot of the infrastructure issues are driven by government now, which is a really a big assistance, and also some bills passed to say, hey, we need to seriously focus on our infrastructure for our people.
So, here we are in 2024, Richard. We're halfway through the year. What do you see for the balance of the year, and what's going to happen in 2024?
Yeah, 2023 has turned out to be an excellent year. I think what happened is when we got the opportunity to make projects happen with high-density polyethylene, now what we're seeing is now they really like it, and they're finding that they're reducing their cost of installation, and they're also finding that they don't have to go back and repair. So it's quite a beneficial system. So I see nothing but positive growth for the next little while. One thing that I did study up on was the EPA with the Safe Water Drinking Act of 1975. They do surveys every 4 years, and in that 4 years they found out 4 years ago, which was done in 2021, and now they have another one in 2025, but they're projecting a 37% increase in money needed to replace the infrastructure that's happening. So it's the infrastructures that are in place are not getting any better. So we have to fix these things quicker, or else it's just going to get more expensive.
Well, that's interesting to hear you say that. We've had some success in Flint recently, so we've been specified as the preferred material in Flint now. And then in the Jackson, Mississippi case, that's another issue for the polyethylene can help solve. We've had, the federal government's taken over that issue, but they were having a raw water supply problem. That raw water line for Jackson failed. Polyethylene came in at a 36-inch diameter with some line stops from our new members' range line, and polyethylene is helping save the day there. Do you see any other major issues with cities across North America, both Canada and the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's also happening, especially in residential areas, is tree infiltration. So in order to get, all these trees have been feeding off of these leaky pipelines, and they've grown so big that they have to try to replace them in the right of ways that they have. So one of the things that polyethylene gives is our trenchless technologies, which really, really helps in that situation. We don't have to chop down these beautiful trees, but also, and it happened in Livonia, Michigan, and also in Michigan, I'm seeing a real steady increase in number of projects as well. So again, a true ductile iron state. I know I'm not supposed to mention names, but it is a true ductile iron state, but they're starting to realize that they can benefit from our product.
Well, interestingly, one of the things we've learned in Michigan recently with our engineering program, Richard, is 38% of the utilities in the 15,000 to 250,000 population served group in Michigan use polyethylene at least once a year. So 38% of the utilities. Now, that's not a market share number. That's a market penetration number. So that's pretty significant. And we see similar numbers like that in other states in the union. We're very proud of that fact here in the polyethylene world. Well, Richard, great job. It's always nice to see you. And welcome back to the podcast. And interestingly, WL is a sponsor of this podcast. So thank you for that.
You're very, very welcome. And continue doing the great job that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard Kolasa, WL Plastics. My next guest in the Poly Podcast is David Fink, president of the Plastics Pipe Institute. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Peter.
Glad to have you on the podcast. It's been probably a year and a half. I would love to hear what's been going on at PPI. I was lucky enough to join you and your conference out in Hawaii. Fantastic job there. But what's been going on and what's impacting the market that the Alliance members should pay attention to?
Sure thing. First off, let me start by saying that we've seen and continue to see just great growth in this industry in potable water and wastewater. We had a record turnout at our annual conference, over 455 attendees, which is fantastic, almost 100 more than a prior. Some new entrants and then just some organic growth in the industry. I think a lot of this is coming as people are realizing that polyethylene piping systems are a sustainable solution. We're cost effective, we're an easy installation. We've spent really at PPI the last 2 years within our regulation arena. Standards like AWWA, C901 for 3-inch and under, C906 for 4-inch and above, our design manual M55, all those have been updated to the latest and greatest materials to make life easy on an engineer. We've also went about and updated our design calculators, PPI PACE, etc., to make life a little easier for the designer so that they don't have to do their own math. They can just plug in the calculations. And I think really our next step is continuing to just offer up education like you do such a great job with, and training more and more users and contractors on how to easily install it. Because most municipalities, and I got to give you credit for this, once you get them to take a pilot, it's pretty quick that they're adopting it and moving it forward. So it's a really exciting time in my mind, and we're looking forward to a pretty robust future for polyethylene piping systems.
Yeah, well said. I'm interested in one of the first things you said, David, is you mentioned that the potable water and wastewater market is going up. Give me a little more color on that issue.
Sure thing. So we're seeing more and more municipalities starting to convert. Water is becoming a scarce resource. I mean, if you follow anything in the news, they're fighting over the Colorado River on the West Coast, right? These states are literally in legislation and legal disputes over who has the rights to that water. Now, luckily, California's gotten some rain this year, but you can't afford to have systems that are leaking, average 16%. You've got some cities that are 25 to 50% leakage of treated drinking water. And conservation's a point and a key point of this, but you've got to have systems that don't leak. And what's a polyethylene pipe system? It's a leak-free system for over 100 years. So the sustainability, the resiliency of a polyethylene piping system is unmatched when you look at traditional materials. And that's really what we're excited about and why we're seeing more and more communities educate themselves, pilot it, and then adopt the use of polyethylene piping systems.
Well, it's very, very true and well said. You know, we do operate in this space in the market where we're trying to encourage trial. And to your point, once they try it, you know, they don't go back. What impact have you seen at PPI on the ductile iron and PVC availability issues and the impact on polyethylene's acceptance and market share?
That's a great question. I mean, during COVID, everybody had supply chain issues. Our industry was blessed because we were deemed an essential manufacturing and installation, so we continued throughout. Our industry actually grew during COVID, which is not something everybody can say. But the availability of polyethylene pipe versus PVC and ductile iron obviously played a key role. So ductile got out to being 2 to 3 times the length of, you know, being able to get those materials available for an installation. So not only have we seen good availability of our product, but with the growth in our membership and current members, you know, expanding out, creating new facilities, bringing on new extruders, you know, we don't have any real supply chain issues today that I'm aware of that are prohibiting people from being confident and having the availability of the products they need when they're doing a polyethylene piping system.
Great. Well said. Nice to understand that. Tell us what's happening in 2024. What's on the horizon for PPI?
So one of the things that we really have going on, and I'm going to stay just in the municipal marketplace, is it's pretty exciting. We're starting a trade school to start teaching people how to do butt fusion and electrofusion and polyethylene piping installations. So when I graduated high school 30 years ago now, there was a group of individuals that in the afternoon in high school, they didn't go to class because they didn't want to go to university. They went and learned a trade, whether that was a plumber or an HVAC technician, mechanic. So we're trying to bring this back now so that our contractors, as we move forward, have availability of individuals that know how to install this material. So we're very excited about that. This actually kicked off 2 years ago with a pilot. It went very well. They're going to actually have 3 courses this year, and then we'll start to look to expand those schools across North America. So it's something we're really excited about. Overall, we've got a great system at this point in time. There's really very little we need to do on the engineering side of the polyethylene piping system. We can confidently offer up a system that's going to last over 100 years in some of the most severe conditions. So it's really now more about education. And again, I really got to compliment your organization, Pete, because you're out there in the field, you know, meeting with local contractors and municipalities and you know, getting them to convert. So really want to thank you for your efforts as well to really move this thing forward.
Well, as I said earlier with Shoumen Rashid from Sandale, I said, you know, it takes a village. You know, when you look at the number of people that help the Alliance do what the Alliance does every year, it numbers over 100 different people from our member companies, and we couldn't do it alone. So thank you. PPI is doing a fantastic job. Without PPI, we wouldn't have the technical resources we need to do what we do. So I think we make a great team, David. So with that, we'll wrap it up. David Fink, always great to catch up with you, and thank you for your contributions to the PolyPodcast. Okay, here we are in our next segment. Peter Dyke back from the Alliance for PE Pipe with Shoumen Rashid from Sandale. Welcome, Shoumen.
Thank you, Peter. I just wanted to say I've been watching your podcast for a very long time. I am a huge fan of your podcast. I'm a huge fan of you, a huge fan of the PE Alliance, and to actually now be in the hot seat with you is an absolute honor, sir. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're awesome, Shoumen. Thanks for saying that. Well, I'm excited to talk to you, too, because you've been doing great work up here in Ontario, and I just kind of like to listen to you tell us about what's going on from your perspective with Sandale and your good work up here in Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the mic.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't really speak on a specific project, but all I can really say is the acceptance of polyethylene into the municipal market has been outstanding the past 2 to 3 years. And I can really say it's probably due to your work and the work of the PE Alliance and all the manufacturers and distributors that have really come together. And I can tell you the origin of the acceptance of polyethylene into the municipal market in Ontario actually started about, I'd say 5, 6 years ago, when you came up and did a PE roadshow here in Toronto with myself. And I remember seeing the crowd, and it was just full of these like young, glimmering engineers, municipal engineers, and they were brought in. And there was like 1 or 2 kind of senior engineers who didn't really believe in the work that you were doing or believing in the actual polyethylene pipe material. But now, those same engineers who kind of denied us success have kind of all moved on, and those same junior engineers are now the ones who are making positive change. And the amazing thing is they're now specifying water main, sewer main all the time, but water main now, which was always other materials. And now we're just seeing like a flood of water main projects that are all polyethylene pipes. So, to go back to my comment about, being, it's, having an honor to kind of being here, it's really to you and all the work that you've done with the PE Alliance.
Well, thanks, Shoumen. That's great to hear. It takes a village, as they say, right? And we represent a large industry, but if you take a look at the number of people from my member companies, you included, that participate in helping us advance the cause of polyethylene in not only municipal water market, but other markets now that we have engineers, that number of people totals well over 100 people in a year from my member companies that help us produce all these shows. So when the industry got together and created the Alliance, they really came up with something good, and we're just executing what they came up with. So it's a real delight. So I look forward to being with you up here in Ontario in a couple months here when we come back and we get to educate some of your customers. So thanks for your kind words, and Shoumen, we'll see you in a couple months.
Absolutely. Part 3.
Welcome to the next segment. Peter Dyke back with Rusty Reeves. Hello, Rusty.
Hey, good morning, Peter. How's it going?
It's awesome. Tell us who you are and what you do.
My name's Rusty Reeves. I'm with Core & Main. I'm the National Director of Fusible. Cover the whole country out there selling polyethylene pipe and converting projects.
Yeah, and a recent graduate of the Alliance's Certified Professional Program.
Exactly, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that program and how it benefited you.
That's a great program. I've been involved with polyethylene for like 30 years, but you just get some different dynamics from it, going a little bit deeper into the engineering aspect, just being able to talk more comfortably and confidently about different projects and aspects of polyethylene, whether it's in design, talking to engineers, or even end users, and kind of letting them know some of the aspects of polyethylene and how it can work for them. So.
Well, you were able to take advantage of your many years of experience, and you got through the program in a year. Yeah. But for most people, it's a 2-year program. Do you think it even benefited them?
Oh, it definitely does. We've got 2 people still in it, 2 Core & Main associates that are taking it now, and I know they're getting quite a bit out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Hey, I wanted to talk to you briefly today about, what Core & Main sees with the polyethylene market nationally, and if you just give, are pipe deliveries coming down? Just give us an indication of what's going on from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we are seeing some better deliveries out there. It's been tough for everybody and all the different pipe materials out there for the last few years. Polyethylene is improving with the availability. However, demand's going up, so it's not going to be. You want to plan ahead for sure. We make sure we keep a lot of inventory on hand, both machines, piping, and the fittings available for it. But it is better for projects right now. You're looking at maybe 8, 12 weeks, even 6 to 8, 12 weeks versus a year or 2 years ago, you're looking at, maybe 18 to 24 weeks. So
that would be on the specialty jobs or longer jobs versus out of inventory.
Exactly. Large diameter projects that are more a project. So you've got, project jobs that you order direct from the manufacturing, to get, or the manufacturer to get to the projects. And then you've got the smaller jobs or repairs, anything like that you want to keep on hand to be able to support the different municipalities or projects going out.
Well, thanks for that view. Tell us, you got any cool projects you want to share? One of the things that, we're getting a lot of listeners in the podcast that want to hear about projects. Do you got any cool ones you want to share?
Yeah, we're actually getting involved in some sustainability, renewable type projects that are pretty exciting, and that's a pretty key buzzword these days as well. I mean, people are definitely getting behind that push. We've got a project that is a geothermal, 36-inch diameter, several thousand feet of pipe. It's going to a software company for cooling. Again, using the geothermal, of course, is sustainable. You don't have a lot of big carbon footprint from it either.
So is this a project that's going deep into the ground, or is it a bunch of lateral pipes at just below grade?
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of both, actually, because you're going to have the geothermal coming up, and it depends on where those locations are, where the project is, and where that heat is coming from. But so it varies project to project. But yeah, it's a nice project with both vertical and some horizontal.
36-inch diameter. So is that the manifold, or is that?
No, that's the main collection.
Wow, that's impressive. All right, we got time for one more. Tell us about another cool project.
Yeah, another big thing on the sustainability is the pulling off the natural gas of a lot of these agriculture and poultry type farms. It's a large hog farm right now we're working with. Really interesting. Makes it very interesting to describe what you do for sure. But by converting a lot of these ponds, waste ponds off these farms and converting that natural gas, you would have natural gas going up into the atmosphere right now if you weren't, or burning it off, which isn't great. This is actually taking that gas, collecting it, scrubbing it, and then utilizing that either on the facility or putting it in the grid.
So hog farms are actually collecting the methane now and turning it into energy, just like landfills started doing 40 years ago.
Exactly.
So how is polyethylene used? I mean, exactly how does it play there? How does it do its job?
It's perfect for that just because of the chemical resistance. You also it's resistant to H2S gas, so you don't have any problems there. But also, you're out in the agriculture, you're in farms, you got, you can utilize the pipe on the ground. It's going to be flexible, very durable, and then also burying it. It's pretty easy because usually on those farms, the soils are very good. You're not in rocky, hard places. You're able to just use native soils, which is another way to really save on the carbon footprint. You're not hauling in a bunch of backfill. You can use your native.
So I understand the collection pipes and the recovery pipes are solid wall polyethylene. Are they using perforated pipe as well?
Use some perforated pipe more for the drainage and kind of collection of some of the waste, but the solid wall is used for the gas collection as well.
Got it. Very cool. How do we get a hold of Rusty Reeves?
Yeah, my email address is rusty.reeves@coreandmain.com. That's A&D, Core and Main. And then my number is 940-205-2841.
All right, Rusty Reeves, always great to talk to you. We hope you come back later on this year.
You bet. Thanks, Peter.
All right, Peter Dyke back with the PolyPodcast. In the next segment, I have my good friend, Alan Ambler.
Hey, Pete, how you doing?
Alan, great to see you. Alan is a professional engineer and the lead in the Alliance's engineering program. Quick question, Alan. Tell us a little bit about the engineering program and the benefit that we're bringing to consulting civils throughout Canada and the United States.
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked, Pete. So the benefit that the engineering program with the Alliance for PE Pipe is pretty paramount. We directly connect with lots of consulting engineers all over the U.S. and Canada and are involved in lots of different types of projects with multiple types of installations all throughout the country. So we are working every week on above ground installation, open cut construction, horizontal directional drill, pipe bursting, float and sink, and lots of other different methods. So these consulting engineers are finding the Alliance for PE Pipe as that resource and are relying on us to be able to help design their project. In many instances, these consulting engineers, Pete, are asked to do things that they're sometimes not comfortable with from their clients. So maybe their wheelhouse happens to be design of treatment systems or design of just simple conveyance via open cut construction, but now they've got to put a pipe on a bridge or something of that nature. So we're bringing that expertise with the understanding of HDPE and helping those consulting engineers through that process.
So, yeah, I mean, it sounds great. What level of detail are we going, though? Are we actually getting plans and specs, or are we just helping them in the conceptual design phase of their projects?
We're getting very, very deep into the details here. So these consulting engineers include us at the 30%, 60%, 90% and final construction phases. We often provide significant design detail at all that level. And then also during construction, we've provided insight to contractors that have very specific questions about how that HDPE is going to behave. So for example, just earlier this week, Aaron, Dan, and I had an hour-long conversation with an engineer that was asked to be able to put a series of HDPE pipes, 10-inch, 12-inch, and 18-inch, on a bridge that actually had a utility corridor underneath it. And he was concerned about the behavior of the pipe. And we helped work through those. He sent us plans, detailed plans, specs. He sent us all sorts of information, included us in the design analysis of that system itself. So we performed that design analysis with assumed temperature variations from his locality that he was in Austin, Texas. And he gave us great information, and we helped him understand the behavior of the pipe, Pete.
Well, that's impressive. How are you getting a hold of all these people? How are they finding us? And what's that method? And how can you keep up with it all?
So that's a good question, Pete. We're moving quite a bit. So they find us through the webinar program, through the roadshow program, through our colleagues, also members of the Alliance for PE Pipe, so all resin manufacturers and then distributors and everyone else that's associated with the message that we're trying to convey here, that the Alliance is that formative resource to be able to come to us, to be able to get all this information. They email us and contact us all the time, and we try to keep everything busy and keep going to be able to provide all of that information that they need to help with their myriad of design problems that they have.
All right, so if somebody's listening to this, how do they get a hold of Alan Ambler?
You can contact me at ambler@pepipe.org. You can look us up on pepipe.org as well for the website, and definitely check us out on a webinar or our YouTube channel, Pete. That's quite popular as well. There's a lot of people out there in the web world that are looking at our YouTube channel and learning all the time.
Yeah, and don't forget about LinkedIn. All right, thank you, Alan Ambler, for helping us out on this segment and telling us more about that fantastic engineering program that you're leading. Thank you very much. All right, welcome back to the PolyPodcast. Peter Dyke here with my good friend Richard Butler from ISCO McElroy. Hello, sir.
Hi, Peter. How's it going?
Fantastic. Tell us who you are and what you do for ISCO
Thanks. So, Peter, I'm the general manager for ISCO McElroy. I have all of Canada and also Alaska.
Cool. So ISCO has owned ISCO for how long now?
So we acquired McElroy in December of 2018. So we're in our 5th year.
Fantastic. And we've talked to a couple other people in this podcast, Richard, in this episode about what's been going on in the United States. What's happening with the Canadian polyethylene market?
Peter, so we've seen a lot of growth after the war in Ukraine, and a lot of the commodities that were being sold out of Russia, I think there's been de-risking across North America. So, for instance, the potash mines in Saskatchewan, there's been a lot of opportunity, and then in British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, rare earth minerals have been a positive trend for us as well.
Wow. So are you seeing any trends outside of a strong market that have been going on, like maybe we had Jeff Lohr on. He talked about some marine projects. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the market specifically that you can share.
Okay. Also irrigation. It's been interesting. I've learned a lot about this in Canada, but in the West, British Columbia, Alberta, lots of irrigation opportunities. You're seeing a lot of commodity food that's being pushed out. And in Saskatchewan, it's wheat and legumes they're the top exporter, I think, in the world out of Saskatchewan. Out in Quebec, it's a lot of berries, cranberries, blueberries, and also potatoes. And you're seeing people take advantage of the opportunity to export more food. Again, I think because of the war with Ukraine and Russia, where we're seeing people expand their operation dramatically. And they're using polyethylene for all the obvious reasons. That's just a better product than the competition.
So what are you competing with in agriculture and irrigation? What products are you competing with?
I think often it's PVC. And in 2020, 2021, when the supply chain was so choked for the PVC market, I saw a lot of opportunities in Canada. And as an industry, I think we did a great job of responding to that opportunity. And we got pipe shipped and installed and really opened up a lot of new end users to a product they had not previously used.
How about specifically in the municipal market, Richard? What are you seeing as far as adoption goes and trial, particularly as it relates to the supply chain issues? Are you seeing these utilities more interested because they really care or are interested about it, or are they just doing it because they can't get the other product?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. For sure, the genesis of the new demand in the municipal market was the fact they couldn't get PVC. I think the Alliance did a great job, and it's specifically in Canada and Alaska, having a lot of shows to educate. Right now, it's a little bit of this inflection point, I think, as the polyethylene industry, where we've got to realize that the PVC supply chain has corrected, and we no longer have that innate advantage, and we need to execute and continue to push the message and convince people of the fact that we're a better product.
Yeah, well, that's a long road, right? Because we've got to hit people one by one. That's the cool thing. I love hearing about mining and agriculture and irrigation, because here we have companies that can use the economy and their just decision. They can make a decision to use a product like polyethylene. Where in the municipal markets, there's a multi-step process that's required.
Absolutely, and that's we've been also in kind of tandem with the municipal markets. We've been talking to a lot of utilities, and what we've found is that if you can get the larger utilities on board with polyethylene and get them converted over, that you can convince the others as well. And ultimately, it comes down to a project specification that you can then replicate.
Well, good job. Great to have you on the podcast. How do people get a hold of Richard Butler?
So it's richard.butler@isco-pipe.com. And Peter, I just want to say thank you for everything you do with the Alliance. You do a great job. Nice working with you.
Thank you. Richard Butler, ISCO McElroy, thank you again.